My mother didn't say it on a phone call where I could argue back. She texted it like a calendar reminder and expected me to smile while she disinvited her own daughter and grandchild from Thanksgiving. What she didn't know was that I kept receipts, screenshots, and 8 years of her "I'll pay you later" promises, and I was done cooking for people who wouldn't even set a place for my kid. I'm Olivia Parker, 33, Richmond, Virginia. I'm a respiratory therapist at St. Mary's, and I'm a single mom to a 6-year-old named Lily who still draws turkeys by tracing her hand. My sister, Hannah, is 2 years younger, married to a CPA named Jeff who loves spreadsheets and golf more than people. My mom, Diane, lives in the same 3-bedroom brick ranch in Mechanicsville we grew up in, except now it's painted gray and filled with Hannahs in-laws every holiday like it's an Airbnb I can't book. Thanksgiving has always been mine. Not because I wanted it, but because after my dad died in 2016, Mom said, "Your schedule's flexible, Liv. You can get the day off easier than Hannah," and then she'd give me a grocery list. I'd roast the turkey, make the cornbread stuffing, the mac and cheese Jeff likes, the sweet potato casserole, the pecan pie my dad loved. I'd drive it all across town, hot, in foil, with Lily strapped in the back seat, house warm and smelling like work. Every year I'd ask, "Can you help with groceries?" And every year Mom would say, "I'll Venmo you after payday." She never did. I didn't push it. She was a widow. I was the good one, the quiet one, the one who didn't make scenes. But this year was different. On November 3rd, 2023, at 8:12 a.m., while I was in the break room heating up oatmeal before rounds, my phone buzzed twice. First text. From Mom, "This year we're hosting the in-laws, so there's no room for you and Lily." Second text, 3 minutes later from Hannah, "You'll still cook, right?" I stared at both. I read them again. "No room for you and Lily. You'll still cook, right?" I looked around the break room like maybe someone else had gotten the same insane message. Nope. Just me, the daughter who had spent the last 7 Thanksgivings sweating over a 16-pound bird so my mother could look like she had a perfect family. My daughter, their actual blood, wasn't invited, but my labor was. I typed, "Okay, that's all. No argument, no paragraph, no angry voice note." I didn't make a scene, but then I set my phone down, opened my oatmeal, and felt something hot and heavy settle in my chest. It wasn't just hurt, it was math. Groceries in 2023 were not 2017 prices. A turkey alone was nearly $40. Butter was stupid. And they wanted me to buy, cook, and deliver food for 14 people, drive it over on my own gas, and then go back to my little apartment with Lily and eat what? Pasta? I finished my oatmeal and pulled up my banking app. I scrolled. Thanksgiving 2022, Kroger, $186.47. Holiday, November 2021, Publix, $173.09. Thanksgiving stuff. 2020, COVID Thanksgiving, that was just us. Lidl, $112.24. 2019, Kroger again, $159.83. And it wasn't just the main meal. There were Christmas brunches, Easter hams, Mother's Day cakes I made for my mom, taking the burden off her because it's hard to host when you're older. My total, just eyeballing 4 years, was over $700. That didn't include 2017 and 2018, when I was still using my old debit card. Didn't include gas, didn't include PTO I took because respiratory therapy doesn't stop for holidays. I opened my photos and searched Thanksgiving. There it was. 2018, my stove covered, maybe 12 dishes. 2019, me carrying pans. 2020, me in a mask delivering food to her porch. 2022, Lily holding a pie she helped make. In every picture, I was the one doing the work. And in every picture, Hannah was the one already at Mom's, wearing a clean shirt, glass of wine in hand. I realized something then. My mom and sister didn't see me as family. They saw me as staff. So I did what I always do when something doesn't feel fair. I started a file. I went home after my shift, put Lily in front of Bluey, and pulled up my laptop. I opened Excel. I labeled it Parker Family Holiday Expenses. I scrolled back through bank statements from 2017 on. I pulled up Venmo and Cash App to see if Mom had ever actually paid me. She hadn't. I added in mileage at the IRS rate because if I'd been driving for work, I would have been reimbursed. I added in 2 half-days of PTO for 2021 and 2022 because I'd taken off early to cook. My hourly was $27.40 then. I multiplied. I got a number. $3,247.89. That was what I'd spent out of my single mom budget to feed people who now said there was no room for me or my daughter. I sat back in my kitchen chair and laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I had them in writing. Except, I remembered something else. My dad, before he died, had a little holiday fund. He was a truck mechanic for the county, not rich, but he believed in big, loud holidays. He'd told me at the hospital in September 2016, I put $5,000 in the credit union. Tell your mom it's for you girls to keep holidays going, okay? Nobody should go broke making memories. I was 26. I said okay. I assumed mom had kept it. I logged into the old Richmond Municipal Credit Union portal. The joint account with his and mom's name was closed in 2019. Final transfer, April 18, 2019. $4,850 to Diane Parker's personal checking. 2019 was the year Hannah redid her kitchen. I remembered Mom sending us a picture of white cabinets and saying, Hannah needed it. She hosts now. She hadn't said she'd used Dad's holiday money. She hadn't said she'd used his money for a kitchen I wasn't invited to eat in. I took a screenshot. I put it in the file. I could have sent a long text. I could have gone into the family group and said, you people are unbelievable. But I knew how that would go. I'd be dramatic, ungrateful, jealous of Hannah, so I didn't argue. I called the Henrico County General District Court instead. The clerk was nice. I said, I need to file a civil claim. It's under $5,000. She said, small claims. You can do it here or online. Is it for services? I said, it's for reimbursement of holiday food and costs from family who requested it and didn't pay. She didn't laugh. She said, if you have texts and receipts, bring them. Filing fee, $52. I had it. On November 6, 2023, I filled out plaintiff, Olivia Parker, defendant, Diane Parker. Amount claimed, $3,247.89, plus costs. Basis, reimbursement for food and holiday preparation, requested by defendant between 11/2017 and 12/2022. Evidenced by text messages and receipts. I attached screenshots. Mom's no room for you and Lily text. Hannah's you'll still cook, right? Text. Mom's 2019 transfer of Dad's holiday fund. I printed my spreadsheet. I made copies. I didn't tell them. The court date was set for December 12, 2023, at 9:30 a.m., right in the middle of their Christmas planning. Service would be by certified mail. Meanwhile, Thanksgiving was still coming. A week before, Hannah texted, hey, can you do 1 turkey, 2 mac, 3 rolls, 4 pies, 5 deviled eggs? Mom's doing green beans since it's easy. Green beans. I typed, no problem. She sent a thumbs up. I drove to Kroger like usual, but this time it was for me. A small 10-pound turkey, a bag of potatoes, rolls, cranberries. I spent $58.34. I kept the receipt in my file anyway. Thanksgiving morning, 9:02 a.m., I texted the family group, Happy Thanksgiving. Since there was no room for Lily and me, we're doing dinner at home this year. Have a great day, everyone. No emojis, no shade, just factual. 30 seconds later, Mom called. I let it go to voicemail. Hannah, what do you mean you're doing dinner at home? We're counting on your food. I replied, you said there was no room. Hannah, Mom meant no room to sleep. You know that. I replied, she didn't say sleep. Mom texted, Olivia, everyone's here. We need the food. I replied, I didn't cook. I wasn't invited. Then I put my phone on silent, basted my small turkey, and let Lily help me make pies. We watched the parade. We ate at our own little table with construction paper leaves. It was our best Thanksgiving. At 1:17 p.m., Mom texted, we have 14 people here and no turkey. Your sisters-in-laws are very confused. I smiled and took a picture of my perfect, small, just-for-us meal. I didn't send it. But then, at 7:23 p.m., a number I didn't recognize called. I picked up. A woman said, Hi, is this Olivia Parker? This is Certified Mail Services calling to confirm delivery to Diane Parker for a Henrico County court date on December 12th. I said, yes, that's her. So she got her turkeyless dinner and her lawsuit on the same day. The next morning, my mom blew my phone up. What is this? You're taking me to court. Over food? You're embarrassing me. You've lost your mind. I didn't answer. I was at work, charting, actually helping people breathe. She was the one who'd wanted to make Thanksgiving a performance. I just turned on the stage lights. Hannah called too. This is so petty. You could have just said you needed help. You made Mom cry. Jeff says this could affect her credit. I saved every message. Because they didn't know how small claims works. It's public. It's recorded. It's not jail, but it's not nothing. Especially when your son-in-law is a CPA who hates messy paperwork. On December 12, 2023, it was 35 degrees and raining. I wore black slacks and a decent blouse. I printed 3 copies of everything in a cheap Staples binder. I dropped Lily at school early. I sat in the courtroom with contractors, landlords, a guy suing over a fence. Then my mom walked in. She had Hannah with her. Hannah was in work clothes, pencil skirt, tan coat, annoyed. Mom had that I can charm anyone look on, lipstick brighter than usual. When she saw me, her face tightened. She walked over and hissed, "You're really doing this?" I said, "Yes," she whispered, "over food." I said, "Over 8 years." Then the judge came in. Everyone stood. Cases moved fast. When they called Parker v. Parker, a few people looked up because of the name. We went to the front. The judge, an older black woman with readers perched on her nose, said, "Miss Olivia Parker, you're the plaintiff?" I said yes. She said, "And Miss Diane Parker is the defendant?" My mother said yes, very small. The judge said, "This says it's for reimbursement for holiday meals. I'll need to see evidence of both the request and the payment, or lack of payment." I handed up my binder. The clerk gave it to the judge. She flipped, she read, she paused at the screenshot of Mom's text. "This year we're hosting the in-laws, so there's no room for you and Lily." The judge actually raised an eyebrow. She turned the page. The next screenshot, Hannah. "You'll still cook, right?" The judge said. "So you were uninvited but asked to provide food?" I said, "Yes, Your Honor. That's been the pattern." My mom jumped in. "Your Honor, it's family. We help each other. She's making it transactional. She wanted to punish me for not having space." The judge looked at her. "Ma'am, when you request goods or services, even from family, and they're provided and there's an understanding of reimbursement, it can be a valid debt." "Did you reimburse her?" My mom said, "Not every time. But I paid for other things." The judge said, "Do you have receipts?" She didn't. I said, "Your Honor, I have 7 years of grocery receipts in my name, and text messages from my mother and sister asking me to cook. I also have documentation that in 2019, a $4,850 holiday fund my father intended for both daughters was withdrawn by my mother and not shared with me." The judge looked up. "You have that?" I said, "Yes." I pointed to the tab. She looked at it. "This is a bank transfer to you, Miss Parker?" My mom nodded, flustered. "My husband died. I was paying bills," I said. At the same time, my sister remodeled her kitchen, also using my mom's help, and I was still buying all the food. The judge sighed. "This is why we tell people to write things down clearly." Hannah whispered, "Mom, I told you she keeps everything." The judge said, "All right. Here's what I see. There is a history of the plaintiff providing holiday meals at the request of the defendant. There is no dispute that she provided them. There is no credible evidence the defendant reimbursed her. The total she seeks, $3,247.89, is supported by documentation. The additional issue of the $4,850 is more complicated, as it was a transfer upon death and there's no written restriction. However, it does show a pattern of the defendant using funds meant for both daughters to benefit only one household. My mom said she makes more than she says she could afford it. I thought she was doing it to help. I said I was doing it to help. And then you said there wasn't room for my child." The judge looked right at my mom. "Ma'am, you can't have it both ways. You can't exclude someone and still expect their labor." She turned back to me. "I am entering judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,247, plus court costs of $52, for a total of $3,299.89, payable within 30 days. If it is not paid, Ms. Parker, you may file for garnishment." My mother's mouth fell open. "Garnishment? For my job?" The judge said, "Yes, ma'am. That is how judgments are enforced." Anna's face turned red. Because her mother, the queen of holiday hosting, just got told by a judge that she'd basically been running unpaid catering through her eldest daughter. We walked out into the hallway. My mom grabbed my arm. "You embarrassed me. In front of strangers." I pulled my arm back. "You embarrassed me? In front of my daughter?" She said, "I told you there wasn't room because Jeff's parents are staying over." I said, "Then they can cook." She said, "They don't know how to make your dressing." I said, "Now they have a reason to learn." She glared. "You're doing this because you hate Hannah." I said, "I'm doing this because you only ever saw me as help." Hannah said, "You could have just talked to us." I laughed. "I did. Every November. Can you help with groceries? I'll Venmo you, 7 years. They didn't have an answer. 30 days later, January 11th, 2024, nothing had been paid. So I filed for garnishment, another $25. I had Jeff's firm name because Hannah never stopped posting about his promotions. The court sent the order to Miller and Rowe, CPAs. 2 weeks later, Mom texted, "The court is taking money out of my check. Are you happy?" I didn't answer. I was helping Lily with sight words, but then something interesting happened. Jeff called me, not to yell, he was careful. He said, "Look, Olivia, this garnishment is in your mom's payroll now. It creates an issue on our side. If I cut you a cashier's check for the balance from our household, can you release it?" In other words, the golden child's husband didn't like my revenge touching his clean books. I said, "I'll release it when I have the full amount." He said, "Fine, you'll have it tomorrow." On January 26, I got a cashier's check for $3,299.89. I took it to my credit union. I deposited it. I filed a satisfaction of judgment with the court. And then I did something small but perfect. I mailed copies of the judgment and satisfaction to my mother's address with a sticky note. "Next time, just say thank you. Liv." I didn't scream. I didn't cuss anyone out on Facebook. I didn't ruin Thanksgiving. They ruined theirs. 2 weeks later, Aunt Carol called from North Carolina. "Honey, what on earth did your mama do? She said you took her to court over turkey." I said, "No, I took her to court over being used." Aunt Carol said, "Good for you." Word traveled. At church, Mom had to explain why she was hosting only Hannah's side now. People asked where Lily was. She had to admit she'd told her own granddaughter there was no room. That stung more than the money. Easter 2024 rolled around. Mom texted, "We're doing a small thing, just me and Hannah." I replied, "Thanks for letting me know." Then she added, "Do you have that lemon pound cake recipe Dad liked?" I looked at my screen for a long time. Then I typed, "I invoice now." She didn't respond. But here's the best part. In June 2024, I signed a lease on a slightly bigger apartment in Glen Allen. Nothing fancy. 2 bedrooms, a little patio. I paid first and last month's rent in full with money my family had owed me for years. I bought Lily a real bed with storage. I got us a new sofa. And I framed, in a cheap gold frame, the judgment that said Parker versus Parker. I hung it in my kitchen where I used to hang my mom's holiday lists. Sometimes I'd be stirring pasta, and I'd hear that November text in my head, "This year we're hosting the in-laws, so there's no room for you and Lily." And I'd think, that was the day I stopped working for free. I didn't make a scene, I just made it official.